Hey, hey, YouTube, internet, interwebs, all you comic readers, lovers, creators out there. It's Anthony Sika again, creator of Oh My God, Venerella, Misty America, Venus and Mars, and much more to come. Hey, I got a very special guest with me tonight. This guy, real quick intro. I was 12 years old. I really was into comic books. It was a comic shop. It was actually called The Comic Shop, not too far from my house where I lived on Staten Island. My mom inquired with the owner of the shop, who was also an artist. It's like, hey, my son wants to earn some extra money working at the shop. Anyway, this cat he hired me off the books. I bagged and boarded stuff for him a couple, once a week, twice a week, whenever I could get there. And in exchange, he threw me some comic books and also gave me some art lessons via some muscle anatomy books, some, how to draw the Marvel way. And the coolest thing was I got to see the pencils and inks on these comic books as he was making them. I got to see layouts for House of Mystery, and this crazy cat at the store also. One of my assignments was, here's a couple Bristol boards, do layout for me for House of Mystery or whatever it was. At 12 years old, that was the coolest thing in the world. But unfortunately, this guy is one of the reasons I'm doing all this in my free time, because I fell in love with comic books even more by seeing someone practicing the art. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to introduce Mr. Lou Manna, my guest tonight. How you doing, Lou?
Hey, how are you? How's everything, Anthony? Good to see you.
I'm doing good. Lou and I haven't spoken in 38 years, but
Yep.
it is what it is. Lou's calling us from, looks like, his kitchen in Staten Island.
My kitchen, my
unless
microwave.
unless he's got a microwave in his bedroom, which is
My
kind of
office.
weird.
This is my office. No,
Very
my
nice. And Lou is well known for work. He did work on House of Mystery. He did work on Thunder Agents. He's done a lot of stuff. He did Infinity Inc., an annual. Did the Young All-Stars. Did the Mighty Crusaders. I remember the line of comics you were doing. What was it? Blue Ribbon, Archie stuff.
Yeah, the Archie stuff. Blue Ribbon.
And most notably, you did some work, The Phantom.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It looked like you did some trade paperbacks, some issues of The Phantom.
Yeah, I've been kind of busy with The Phantom on and off for over about 20 years now. I started doing some stuff for Moonstone in the early 2000s, and somehow got work in Australia with the company over there to do some Phantom stuff. And
oh wow,
yeah, it's been nice. It's a character I don't get to draw for a while, and then all of a sudden I'll do some stuff. And I think there was a bad fire about a year ago in Australia, and they had a benefit book, and I did a piece for that was auctioned off for the victims over there. So I do a lot of commission work on the Phantom still to this day, and I've been invited to a couple of their Friends of the Phantom luncheons. So it's like a little Phantom community. It's like a cottage industry.
So who owns the rights to the Phantom?
Or it's still owned by King Feature Syndicate. They still own it, but they license it out to different. Hermes is one of them. A few up in Australia, and Egmont is another one. Moonstone still had the rights, I think, for a while.
And the Phantom originated in 1936, right?
He was the very first superhero. He was the precursor to Batman and all of those characters. Right. And the blank eyes from the Phantom. Right. So he was. It was actually one of the few first samples I remember doing years ago was the Phantom, and my friend's father-in-law, he made Xeroxes for me, and I was able to send them around to different companies, and that was really the first sample I did. This is a current Phantom piece, if I could see it. Something new. These pieces are commission pieces, or I do them and they go up on eBay. Or
wow.
So
That's gorgeous. You have a website, Lewis Manna, correct?
Yes.
Lewis Manna. It's Lewis.
Yes. Yeah, I have to use Lewis because there's a photographer, food photographer. He's got Blue Manna, so I use Lewis. So that's that. No piece. Again.
Yeah, I'm sorry that my internet went out.
Okay.
So whatever you were doing, you did a good job there.
I vamped.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
So the Phantom, you said you're doing some stuff right now, just commission work, or do you?
Yeah, I did a book on spec with two writers, Pete Stevens and Jamie Diaz. We did a controversial Phantom story that they wrote and they asked me to illustrate. And it's kind of laying around in limbo now. It's kind of controversial for the Phantom, and we have to make sure that everybody that's involved at the rights signs off on it.
Oh, I got you.
It's about a 112-page book I did.
112 pages?
Yeah.
Now, did you
pencils and inks, letters,
pencils and inks, huh?
And yeah.
Wow.
I'm not a good inker. I always hated my inks, and I always thought I was a better pencil, and I was an inker. And but if this book, but as you go on in this career, you wind up doing everything yourself. Yourself. It's something that you wind up doing the whole three parts of it: pencils, inking, lettering. I do a little bit of coloring here and there, but if I had my choice, I'd just pencil and have someone else ink it. Keith Williams, who used to ink John Byrne and has been around a long time, is a wonderful guy. He's inked some Phantom pieces that we've sold together, like two Phantom artists together. And he just makes the stuff look so much nicer than I could ever make it. So, and
just for FYI, folks, Lou has a website called lewismanna.com.
Yes.
Which I'm going to show off in a second. Here we go. You'll see it's lewismanna.com. You got stuff about Lou.
Yeah, it needs to be upgraded. It hasn't been upgraded in quite a few years, but that's not my specialty. So someday I'll get it upgraded and add some new stuff, but it's a few years old now.
You'll see he's got actually stuff up here.
Yeah.
That's really nice. You also let me see what else we got. I love this.
Yeah, that's popular. I've done that a few times, that theme with the Phantom on the throne. That particular piece, I've done maybe 2 or 3 commissions on that one over the years. It's a classic Phantom pose, I think, on the throne. And I always thought that character was a good character if he was kept in the shadows. And, the problem with the Phantom, I think, is he's such a bright character that you want to show all of the costume and everything. But I kind of like the dark parts of the character.
I'll tell you what a master penciler, layouts, whatever. Look at the design, Lou. I'm gonna show everybody a secret, Lou. Mm-hmm. Look at these scratchy, messy pencil lines, but look at it zoomed out. Oh my God, it looks fantastic. Yeah. That is a true comic book artist. All those hatchings, all those lines of shade, you zoom in 200%, whatever, like what you and I are working on when we're on 11 by 17, mm-hmm. And it looks like chicken scratch, but man, look at it zoomed out. That is phenomenal. You got a little bit of, I see a little bit of Kirby in that shot too.
Yeah, Kirby was one of the ones that I never really got into until later on. I mean, when I was learning, I was self-taught, so anything I picked up out of books. Kirby was the last one I found, because he wasn't Kurt Swan, he wasn't Buscema, he wasn't Gil Kane or Murphy Anderson, those slick Carmine Infantino, those guys who I grew up with first. I was a DC fan first, and then later became Marvel. And Kirby he wasn't what I thought those artists were. But later on, I found out, he is. There was so much power in all his drawings.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what it is. It's that, it's that the excitement of every panel.
Yeah. And I think it goes to show you, I mean, although he was a great artist, I don't think you have to be a great draftsman and to be a good comic book artist. You have to be a good storyteller. And Kirby was
Exactly.
an excellent storyteller. You know, and action
Exactly.
was his he could tell it. He could tell the story very good. And I try to tell that to people who ask me for advice today. I say, you know, I know the drawing you have to know enough of it, but I think if you can tell a story, I mean, there's so many artists today, especially who tell stories. They're excellent pencilers, but the storytelling is what really attracts the reader's eye. I think to push it along. Yeah,
Sure.
that's that particular Phantom story. I think was that was sold to the company over in Australia too. That one hasn't been printed yet. I don't think. Oh, maybe that one was, and the other one was. There's a couple I did for them. A couple are still in their drawer that they haven't printed yet. The weird one was I had done Moonstone's Phantom, and then they went a different direction. I did two 48-page graphic novels for them, and then they went into a different type of format. And I had done another one on spec. I had just kind of drawn it and sat around, and someone saw a few pages of it on the internet that I was selling. And the company got in touch with me and asked, "Hey, what are you doing with this book? You think we can publish it?" And that's how that particular story went to Australia. And it was a lot of fun to do. I had to, redid some of it to make it fit their format, but I enjoyed it. I like the character. I like action comic. I like superhero stuff. I like mystery stuff.
Well, growing up in New York as a kid in the 70s, I remember the Phantom strip would run daily in the Advance or the Daily News or whatever, the paper. Yeah. And I think then they had some color on the weekends.
Yes, Sundays.
Let me ask you, let's go back, Lou. You have a cool story about showing your portfolio around. I think you were 21, 22, something like that.
Yeah.
And of course, this is probably a few years before I knew you. But yes. How did you get into drawing comics?
Well, I think from 8 years old, I was a comic book fan. I bought everything that came out DC every month, and then someone told me a friend of mine in the neighborhood was also a comic book fan, and so we would trade off stuff. And he was also wanted to be an artist. I wanted to be an artist, so we would draw. And I used to work at my friend's father's grocery store, and I draw in the paper bags, and everybody left the store with a badly drawn Iron Man or Spider-Man or whatever. But I kept at it. And one day he came in and he said, my cousin is married to Jim Janes. He's an artist that works for Warren. So I just got a job at Warren, and he's looking for an assistant. So I showed him my stuff, and Jim said, "Oh, I like your stuff." So I was always fast with layouts. I could lay out a page. I could lay out 10 pages a day if I had to. If I had a script in my hand, I could break it down. And for Jimmy, who was kind of slow, that was terrific. So I got a little bit of experience working with Jimmy, learning how to, do things. And then he went over I started with the Rook. I'll never forget the very first drawing I did of the Rook. I was just dripping sweat. I was so nervous that this was going to be published. But I think around the same time, right before that, I had started going to DC. And I would go up to DC, and I would show my portfolio to Jack Adler. Took a liking to me. He's Howard Stern's cousin, Jack Adler. He was the production manager at DC, and he'd look at my work and he'd go, the hands, bad hands. Go home and draw the hands. So I go home and draw the hands. I come back next month with a new sample. The hands are good, but the buildings are terrible. So this was going on. I was going every month for like 3 years. Wow. And it would be, the heads are go home. The buildings are good. Draw the heads. And I don't know why he just didn't throw me out or why. I was too stupid to say, maybe this isn't going to work out. But I kept going and I kept going and I kept going. And I had shown my work to Dick Giordano and Dave Manna, the editors of House of Mystery or whatever. And they looked at my stuff, and Dick was on the phone, and I picked up my stuff and I came home. And when I got home, my wife goes, "Did you go to DC Comics today?" I said, "Yeah." She goes, "Well, they called looking for you. They want to give you work." I said, "What? Get the hell out of here." I called them back up. They said, "No, where'd you go? We were looking for you." I said, "Well, I was so used to getting rejected that I just went home." They said, "No, we want to give you a story." So I said, "All right, but if I come back tomorrow, you're going to have a script for me?" They said, "Yeah, we'll have a script." So I that night, I'm like, man, I hope they don't give me the Flash or Hawkman or something. I want Batman or Super. I want something decent to work with. Well, I went back the next day. They gave me a script, all right. They gave me a werewolf western story to do, which was great because it taught me that you have to be able to draw things you don't like. You have to be able to draw things you never drew before. I mean, I never did a horse or a chuck wagon
Sure.
and I brought it in and they hated it. They said, no, this is terrible. Go home and do it again. I said, here we go. That's the end of my career. Brought it in the second time. They liked it. They gave it to a veteran, Sam Granger, the ink, who used to work at Marvel in DC.
Yeah, that was a big inker. Yeah.
Oh, when I saw the Ken back, I said, I did this because it looked like so different, but it was all there, but it was cleaned up. And then for about 2 years after that, they gave me House of Mystery, Tales, Unexpected, Ghosts, and those stories. And that was terrific training. And around that same time is when I started to work with Jimmy. So I had worked at DC for a while. And then I worked with Jimmy on the Rook and Warren stuff. And then he got the Legion of Superheroes, which was a big DC book at the time.
Sure.
And again, he was so slow, he could never, ever, ever finish the book on time. But I was there to do the layout. So I would lay out 22 pages in 2 days, 3 days. And he would erase the stuff and draw over it. And pretty much everything that was there for him to work from. And this worked out really good. And then in the meantime, he had said to me, my friend Rich Buckler is looking for somebody too. And I'll never forget, I went to Jimmy's house and I'm looking for Rich Buckler, this big, fancy comic book artist. He's drawing the Fantastic Four. He's drawing everything. And I said, well, where is he? He's over there. He was sleeping on the floor in the corner. He got up, he wiped the sleep from his eyes, and he came over and looked at my stuff, and he handed me a what if Thor did something or other, I forget. And I went home and broke that down from it. Then I started working on All-Star Squadron with him, and
wow,
the Justice League and the Hulk and all those early issues of All-Star Squadron that he did. And then I wound up getting some work on my own, and then it just kind of progressed. And then
were you getting any layout credit on these books? No.
Back then they didn't give. Now they give credit if you pee on a page. They go, okay, pissed by.
Yeah.
But back then, no, I didn't get any credit. I got paid, and half the time I had to go chase them for the money because.
Were there any other legendary artists that had layout people or assistants like that?
Back then they all did. I think a lot of them did. I think a lot of them. I know Rich had a lot. I wasn't the only one. I mean, we had a little studio in Staten Island down on Van Duzer Street. My family owned the building, so we had an empty storefront. I said, "You want to make a studio out of this?" So we did. So it was Jimmy James, it was Rich, Denny Cowan was early on in his career.
Wow, really?
Mark Teixeira.
Wow.
Javier Soltez. And that's where I met Carbonaro with the Thunder Agents. We got to be friendly out of that studio. And that's how I became the original Thunder Agent revival artist on that book. I was with John. I helped them lay out the book. I plotted the black and white one first. We did.
Right.
And then, but John was a great guy, nice man. We had a good time together, friendly. But John was stuck in his ways of certain things. If you said, I want to do the Thunder Agents this way, he would say, okay. And then you would do it. And he'd go, no, we got to do it this way. So, it was we had some battles back and forth. But towards the end, actually, we had done a new version of the Thunder Agents. We were going to revive them into some series of one-shots to tie them all together. And then he passed away. So that was not too, but I do have some artwork from that series as well. It's the new stuff.
So in between that, so you got your studio. I read some stuff that you were working with Dick Giordano a lot. How was that?
Well, Dick was a mentor to me as well, because when I started to do some stuff at DC, for some reason or another, Dick and I hit it off pretty well. I think he was like that with all the artists that were up DC. I think there wasn't one guy who didn't get along with Dick. He was just a nice man and a great guy. And we would go to lunch and we'd sit around and talk about comics or whatever. And, I would go maybe once a month up there, and he was always pushing for me to get work. And I think he promised a lot of guys work. And, there's only so many jobs to go around. At one point, DC only had about 30 titles. And I remember looking at a Christmas party going, gee, you know what? I'm lucky. I'm one of the 30 artists in this room who's got a title to work on. Right. Unfortunately, it was Young All-Stars. And it was weird because I had I had the store. I think I had closed the store on Forest Avenue and opened one up on Van Duzer Street. So it was an artist who came into the store and said, "Why don't you send your samples to Roy Thomas? Roy's looking for people all the time." And I'm like, eh. I had done a Black Terror graphic novel that never saw print, but I did it. It was really about one of the better things I had done at the time. So I sent it to Roy. Roy saw the Crossbone character, the Black Terror, but it reminded him of Mr. Bones, his character.
Right.
So I got a phone call out of the clear blue sky saying, "Hey, this is Roy Thomas. What are you working on?" I'll never forget. I was working at the Navy base at the time as an illustrator. I had gotten a job as an illustrator for the Navy. And I said, "No, I'm not really working on much right now." "Well, you want to draw an Infinity Incorporated annual?" I'm like, "Yeah." I mean, I said, "All right, I'll FedEx you the script. You'll have it tomorrow." I couldn't believe this. You know, Roy Thomas, who was next to Stan Lee, I think the biggest Marvel writer there ever was.
Yeah.
And so that's how I started that. And then he had me do a little bit of fill in on one or two of the Infinities. And then he said, "I'm going to put you on Young All Stars." I said, "Okay, terrific, regular title." I remember halfway penciling the first issue, and he called me up. He goes, "They just canceled the book. We got 4 issues." I'm like, "What?" I said, "I can't believe this," but that's the way it goes in this business.
And that was probably late 80s, early 90.
I think late 89 or 90,
yeah,
something like that.
Because when I was in the store in 83, 84, in your shop, I believe that Infinity Inc. had just come out.
Yeah,
right after Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Yeah,
Infinity Inc. came out.
I did like the last 1 or 2 issues of Infinity. I did a half of an issue and a couple of pages in there, and then the annual, which was around the same time, and then right over to Young All Stars. And then, of course, Dick said to me, had I known you were doing Young All Stars, which I assume he must have known, but maybe he didn't. Right. So I would have kept the title going a little longer. But Roy wanted to leave because the Crisis kind of took away a lot of his characters. But but the Young All Stars, I still revisit every so often. I do some commission pieces, and every once in a while, I'll do some Young All Star pieces. I'll put them up on, I put them up on Facebook or eBay or stuff like that. So
nice. So then, speaking of eBay and Facebook, if you go to lewismanna.com, you have ways to contact you. But I noticed you do have an eBay store. You got original artwork on there, right?
I put up pieces on eBay, not a store, but I always put something up every week or so.
Right.
I've got a couple of weeks. Once I get my website updated, I think it'll be a little easier for me to put new stuff on.
Well, for everyone watching the stream, both live and in replay, you can go to eBay, just search Lou Manna original art, and you'll find it. Because I did a search for your stuff for comics of yours on eBay. Because I only have these 2 issues of Thunder Agents. I don't have, and I'm going to get into this also. It seems like you got into series when I was both working at the shop before and then after. It seems like you got the luck to get onto a book, do a couple of issues, and then it gets canceled.
I was the comics kiss of death. Like you get on
company, or the company goes under. Like what was it? Blue Ribbon, the Archie series. Yeah. I remember you had just done I guess a book with the Jaguar on the cover.
Web Jaguar, yeah.
Yeah. And so what happened with that? That went under too?
Well, that was political stuff, I think, with Rich. Rich was this funny thing. Carbonaro had done some editing, I think, up at Red Circle with the Thunder Agents, and they were looking for an executive editor. And I said, Buckler would be good at this. He's got a lot of experience. So he went up for the interview, and he got the job. And he had just so many things going on at one time. I think he overextended himself. I think also he had a lot of different artists, friends of his working on stuff. I'd done that book with an old friend writer of mine, Stan Timmons, that we had done a new talent showcase together at DC, a character called Sundog. And,
I got you.
I think that's what killed the Red Circle stuff. I just think that there was a lot of I think they had gotten a little upset that Rich was not delivering all the work that he was promising them, and I think they just canceled the line. As far as the other stuff, I mean, some of those books I had no. The Thunder Agents was forever, always one of those titles that never lasted long, no matter who did it. I did it.
Sure.
Perez did it. David Singer had the characters for a while, and there was a whole big thing with that.
Even Rob Liefeld in the late
Liefeld,
90s.
DC Comics had. I mean, DC Comics had them, and they couldn't do anything with them. It's just one of those characters that sets of characters that are great. People love them, but for some reason they don't do it. Although that first issue of the Thunder Agents that you have, I remember at the time sold about 45,000 copies.
This Hall of Fame?
The other one, the first red cover. I remember, and 45,000 copies for at that time an independent was a pretty good amount of copies. That was good. Unfortunately, I don't have any of that original artwork. It was disappeared years ago.
I saw some pages though when I was in the comic shop. You did have some pages of that.
Yeah, somehow someone got a hold of them and they disappeared, as well as so much of my DC stuff that I had from Gil Kane and Murphy Anderson.
Which Infinity Inc. annual is that, by the way?
I think it was the second one. It was
it
was the second one.
I'm gonna go see if I can find that next week.
I did House of Mystery, and they had 3 titles: House of Mystery, Ghost, and Unexpected, that were there for 50 years. I get on the book, they cancel them. So if you want to get a title canceled, give me the book.
You hear that, audience? If you want, so see, I'm not going to publish your artworort yet. Lou.
No, don't put that.
No. Guess what? I can't cancel it. I can't. I can only cancel myself. So it's that's the good thing about it being independent. So
if the fandom gets canceled, then you know it's me, because that fandom's been around since 1936. So if I killed it.
So Lou.
Yep.
I've been buying these since I was 12 years old.
You gotta have them.
Even though there's other erasers out there.
These are the ones.
Lou Manna.
Where are they? Here. Needed eraser.
Manna made me buy these goddamn erasers.
You need them.
For years. For years I've been using these erasers. And always the thing I learned from Lou was make your pencils looser. Because I was like, I was drawn like I was drawn on a notebook, you know.
So did I when I first started. I did everything because you only see the finish, so you don't see the work underneath it. So you don't realize that there's a lot of lines.
But man, doing my own book, like this last book, I did Misty America. It's 20 pages, and I did the whole thing. Instead of using a blue line, I used the pencil. Mm-hmm. Oh, what a pain in the ass! I don't care whether you work for Marvel or you're independent. Everyone should hire someone just to erase their pencils off the ink pages, because it is a pain. Yeah. But you know, I had the pleasure of seeing a lot of stuff, House of Mystery layouts. Lou was working on some stuff when I was working in the comic shop. But tell me, Lou, you do Infinity Inc., the annual. You pick up Young All-Stars.
Then I did League of Champions, I think, with a Perez cover.
Nice.
They did that. There was a lot of miscellaneous stuff back then. You know?
I'm gonna see Perez next week. Actually, I'm going to a convention in Florida here, and I've met him 4 times, going way back to 1993. Yeah. Every time I meet him, I take a picture with him. We both have no hair now, me and George. And he was super fat.
Now he lost weight.
Now he's my size.
Yeah. The funny thing, Perez was worked for Buckler before I did. And when Perez left to go on his own, I think that's around the same time because he was doing the Titans at the time. So started doing the Titans.
Yeah, and Perez got into comics through Buckler's doing Fantastic Four, right? Yeah.
Well, yeah, he did the same thing. He helped Rich, and Rich was very good. I mean, Rich could pencil. He could draw like anybody. He could draw like Neil. He could draw like, I think one time he told me Neil sent him a bill for an invoice for work that Rich did because he said you stole all my stuff.
I met Neil a few years ago.
Yeah.
He's not a very nice guy, at least when I met him.
I met him when I was 13. My friend and I went up to see him on 3rd Avenue when the DC offices were at night. It was right around, he was doing the X-Men at the time, but he was working at DC's office. And he took mercy on me because all I had was a bunch of Murphy Anderson swipes and stuff like that. But
right.
He didn't critique it too badly. But I met him a few times after that, and I've never had a problem with Neil. I didn't have a problem with him.
he's just not, unless you're spending a lot of money with him.
Well,
he doesn't really like to take the time to be cordial.
Yeah. He's got his
observation.
He's got his cottage industry for sure.
Hey,
but
it's Neil Adams. So
I think people critique his work these days, and to be honest with you, I think he's a much better draftsman today than he was even when he was doing all that classic stuff in the 70s. Because at that time he was way ahead of everybody else. But if you look at his anatomy and stuff now, he's got that scratchy line stuff, which is okay. But his draftsmanship is probably better than it was when he was in this.
Oh yeah, no, he hasn't lost a step as far as his skills.
No.
His art skills are phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's just that scratchiness. It's so weird because he's always had that scratchiness.
Yeah. But he uses a Pentel. I think he uses a Pentel pen, or I think there was these certain pens he was using for a while. I'm trying to remember which one I had. They were a fountain type of pen.
Right.
You'll get a scratchy line with it.
Right.
But he can. If you look at his stuff, his pencils are just fabulous.
Oh,
anatomy, he's the master of it.
Hey, it's Neil Adams, so
Yeah.
So it's the early 2000s. 1997 came and went, and comic books went in the toilet for about.
This is your life.
And what'd you do after that?
Well, I always seem to keep multiple things going at one time. I closed the store in 95, not because I didn't, it was still doing okay. And I had only had the one store at that point. I had two stores for a while, a couple of years. And then the market dropped out of it, but it wasn't even that. I could still survive because we owned the building, so it wasn't a lot of overhead. But I had gotten a job with the Chase Manhattan Bank as an art director, a studio graphics manager was. And going from Staten Island to working in Manhattan, by the time I got home, my parents were running the store for me, whatever, at the time. And it was too much for them. It was getting too much for me. So I just decided to close it. I was freelancing still. I had the other job. So I thought, okay. I think on Saturdays I was teaching at Sailor Snug Harbor, an art class for about 7 years. I did that comic book class. So I was kind of busy. And I just felt that I had had enough of the retail end of it. And I went from Chase to another company, Accenture, for 9 years. And after that, in 2005, I think it was, I stopped working. I actually was working for Dan Slott, who's a writer at Marvel.
Sure.
His sister, she had a business in Manhattan. And I went to work for her for a couple of months. And she said, you really should be drawing. This is not for you over here, working in an office. You got to draw. So I went freelance, and it's been 17 years now since I freelanced. And thank God, I mean, it was a good idea for me. It just it kept me busy. I had good years, bad years, but I was doing stuff I really loved. So when you're doing stuff you like, it doesn't feel like you work. And even to this day, I'll work almost every day drawing something, whether I get paid for it or doing it on my own. And I don't feel like I work. I just feel like it's something I love to do.
So you closed the comic book store you owned in 1995. Mm-hmm. Was it the death of Superman that killed your comic book store?
No, Superman was. So I sold a lot of copies of Superman. I sold a couple of hundred copies for
that runs right in time with, what was it, 91 when Image came out.
Yeah.
And then to compete with Image, they started breaking Batman's back and killing Superman and all kind. And that's when all the foil covers and
Well, that's what killed a lot of stores, was all the Image stuff, because everybody sold a lot of Spawn #1s and Wildcat #1, and then when the other titles came out and we were ordering hundreds of copies, 200 copies, 150 copies, you were selling 10.
Right.
So you had to eat those other copies, and
I
got out probably around that time, which was good for me. But I think that I don't know how the stores do it today. I had friends of mine who had stores in Staten Island, beautiful stores, and one guy had to close. And he had a tremendous store. I thought he was doing well, but the overhead is tremendous. Rents are tremendous. The outlay you have to put every week on a book. You have to buy titles that you're never going to sell. I don't envy anybody that's in that business today.
Yeah,
I think it's really hard to make a living.
Not to mention the comics suck right now.
Yeah, I mean, I've been reading comics since I was 8 years old. My birthday's Monday. I'll be 67, and I'm down to a handful of stuff that I look at, and if it's a good artist or something really nice, I enjoy it. But other than that, it's hard to look at.
Well, also, you and I, we draw on Bristol boards, and the artists today, almost 80% of them are on tablets,
right?
And computers drawing big tablets the size of TV screens, and all the cross hatching, all I've seen a guy create a whole draw like a Venom or Spider-Man in the sky with a New York City skyline. And I've seen him actually take a template thing and draw the entire background of New York City in 10 seconds. And then, I used this in my last book, so let me change it all. And you just take the proportion tool, turn it around, flip it a little bit, maybe distort it, and all of a sudden they got a new background. And, to me, it's really evident in a lot of new comics, and here's why. If you go to a comic convention or a comic store, say in 1983, when you go to stare at the wall with the new comics that just came out, you can see a Neil Adams cover from across the convention hall and know that it's Neil Adams. You can see a Luis Garcia, you could see a Frank Miller, you could tell even a Todd McFarlane, John Byrne, George Perez, Jim Starlin. You can tell a Rob Liefeld. You can tell a Jim Lee. You can tell it's a Mark Silvestri from across a convention room. The problem is, in the year 2021, for guys my age, your age, and 10 years younger even than me, they were used to comic book artists that had style. And the style is you not looking real. Because even let's look at the most photoreal guy that we just mentioned, Neil Adams. Yeah, Neil Adams had a real advertising, storyboard, movie poster sensibility. But at the same time, the lines and the scratchiness and the style looked exaggerated. It looked like Mort Drucker, Mad Magazine, had a bit of a John Severin line to it. Anyway, the whole point is, extra long limbs, those Savage Land stuff with the X-Men, very exaggerated, yet still real. Brian Boland, even a guy that, draws detail, but Brian Boland, even, it's Brian Boland, it still looks like a comic book.
Right.
The problem with a lot of art today, long way to get to my point, a lot of the art today looks like computer graphics on a video game. Whatever my son's playing in the other room on his PlayStation, that's what it looks like to me. It looks, and by the way, the color, all the rendering in the color, screw that too. It hides the lines by the artist.
It does. There's a few colors that are very, very good, I think, but overall, there's quite a few of them that oversaturate everything to the point where you're looking like, what is that? You can't make it out. A lot of the artists who are at a certain level, all of a sudden jumped up to another level, and you wonder why. And because, like you say, it's photographs, it's photo manipulation, it's Photoshop,
even color optics, which was the first real computer coloring company that came out of Image Comics, and they were doing the Spawns and the Youngbloods and the Gen 13s and all that. All that stuff still looked like comic books. This artwork still looks like comic books.
Right.
Even though this was done in 94 or 95.
Right.
But what happened is, at some point, everything became a color wash, and I think the rendering is too much. At least to classic comic readers, it looks
Well, the stuff I'm looking at now, I mean,
on.
there's some of the titles. I mean, they're mainstream titles that they're Marvel and DC, and I just look at the art and I'm saying to myself, well, they must be hiring a lot of kids that are willing to work for practically nothing because they don't really care anymore. If they get that book out and it becomes a movie, or they option it for a film, or they make as $1 billion on an X-Men movie, they don't care if they sell 30,000 copies, and of course they don't. They care less if they have to pay some guy a lot less money per page than they do an older guy. There are a ton of artists, not myself, but there are a ton of guys in my bracket, my air, who are, a step above, a step below, who can't get work for the most part, and they're 10 times better than a lot of the kids that are out there doing mainstream books.
Well, you know that the top guys. Do you know the top guys at Marvel and DC that aren't under contract are lucky if they're getting $300?
Yeah, I didn't realize that low now. Yeah, I didn't realize it was that low.
$300, Lou.
It's a shame.
On Twitter and Facebook the other day, a bunch of big artists at DC said, fuck it, I'll tell you how much I make, excuse my French, because it was a creator group and they were talking about why independent comics and, crowd-funded comics like my own, or whether you're on Indiegogo or Kickstarter, folks that make and create their own comics, the reason why that's so, popular and also cash-driven right now is because the artists like Liam Sharp and Brian Boland and Pat Broderick and all guys, your age, before you,
right?
Classic guy like Neil Adams. Why is John Byrne not working? I mean, because they're not going to pay what John Byrne wants.
Well, that's how Barry Smith got Conan, because they had gotten the rights to Conan, and they said, well, we can't afford Buscema on this title. He gets the top rate. Let's give it to Barry Smith. He gets nothing. And, that's what they did.
But all those classic guys, and even the guys from the 90s now, dude, unless they're not working, because it used to be, like you just said, Barry Windsor Smith. Now, I know that, like, those early Conans that Barry Smith did, those were Roy Thomas written, right?
He wrote almost all of them.
But what's so funny is that although Roy Thomas is a legend, and of course Stan Lee's a legend beforehand, when you look at Silver and Bronze Age DC and Marvel, unless it's a Marv Wolfman or a Roy Thomas or Stan Lee or Chris Claremont, you really didn't take into any consideration the writer. We as readers and artists, though, we looked at the artist that was involved. Oh, John Byrne took over the Hulk and Fantastic Four. George Perez is doing Teen Titans. Starlin is doing the Avengers. Whatever it was, Frank Miller, even though he was a writer, you remembered the artist.
Right.
And today, it's the writer that's so important, and no one talks about the artist at all.
They're interchangeable. And an artist years ago, if you picked up a Superman, you were going to get Kurt Swan every month. If you picked up a Fantastic Four, you were going to get Kirby every month. Now, if you get 2 issues of the same guy doing the same book, it's a miracle. So you can't develop a following. It's very difficult. But on the other hand, most of it's garbage, I have to say. On the other hand, you get a book, let's say like the Batman Earth 1, volume 1, 2, and 3. To me, that's a mini movie in a book. I mean, that's the melding of everything right in a comic book when it's done right. I thought the script was terrific. I thought Gary Frank did a great job. I thought the colorist didn't oversaturate anything. And those are the books I don't mind paying $25 for, believe it or not, because to me, that's something you could read again and again and again and find something different every time. But on the same token, I might be spending $5 for a Batman comic, and I'm going, what's going on here?
Well, Jeff Johns, still knows how to treat the characters.
Right. I thought Doomsday Clock, I thought they did a great job with that. And Gary Frank is a classic. So he's the modern Silver Age type artist. He's got that Silver Age look, but yet he's got that new style that a lot of people like today, and he adapted his style a bit to that liney kind of stuff. I think he's fabulous. I think he's one of the guys I go out of my way to make sure I buy his stuff.
DC and of course Gary Frank did Supergirl and the Hulk and all that stuff. But DC, they still have a few artists. Gary Frank, Jason Fabok.
Fabok, he's very good. Yes,
has a very distinct, almost a Jason Frank look.
Yeah, he's got a little bit. He's got a little bit of Brian Ballen in him as well.
Yeah, of course.
Fabulous. Yeah, I think.
And then
Brian Hitch is terrific.
Yep. And Ivan Reyes is really good.
Ivan is wonderful too. Yeah, those guys are very, very good. And there's a few others, but I look at some of their other titles and I go, boy, even the Marvel stuff. I glance at it all to see what's going on, and I go, man, this is garbage. I mean, it's just really bad. And if you look at the solicitation for the month, you look and you go, who the hell's that guy? Who the hell's that guy? Where did that guy come from? Who's this guy? You don't know any of them.
No.
At least at DC, you still have a semblance of some guys that you say, oh, I remember them. But even I remember talking to Brian Ballen one time at a convention, who was a lovely guy. And I happened to be at DC the day he came into DC, and he did some Adventure Comics covers in a bullpen. And I sat there and I met him when he just came over from England. And this was when he just broke here a little bit. And before Camelot 3000. Nice guy. I went to a Comic-Con in New York. I had bought the Killing Joke at another deal. I brought it to his table. His agent said, oh, Brian's not signed until 3 o'clock. It was like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I said, but there's nobody here. He said, oh, sorry, not signed until 3 o'clock. Okay. Starting to walk away. Brian turned around and goes, hey, come back here. I'll sign it for you. Nice man. Great artist. I said, I wish you were doing more stuff. He said, he gets rejected. He turns in covers. They tell him no sometimes. I mean, there's certain guys you leave alone. Brian Hitch, Brian Ballen, Jim Steranko. Those guys, whatever they put on the paper, just buy it. Just sell it. It'll sell. It'll sell. Certain ones. But the editors, I guess.
Have you met Steranko?
Well, I was close. I was good with friends with Jim. I haven't spoken to him in a few years. But the thing about Steranko was, I had my store, and I was working at Chase, and we had a creative service department where we do presentations for different people. So Stan Timmons was a writer friend of mine. We had worked together on Thunder 8 and some other stuff. And Stan called me up one day. He goes, Jim Steranko's looking for somebody to put a presentation together for him. I said, tell him to give us a call. I'll do it. We'll do it in our office. We'll do it for him. No problem. And I get a phone call one day at my store. Is this Lou Manna? I said, yeah, Steranko. Holy Christ, it's Steranko. And we did the presentation for him. I put it together for him. And I don't know if he ever used it or not, but we met for dinner in the city. And we became friendly. He would call me up at all different hours of the day and night. And night. He only works at night after 10 o'clock. And I was going to work at 5 o'clock in the morning. So I was talking to Jim at 10 o'clock at night till maybe 1 o'clock in the morning. I had to get up for work. So one time he called around midnight, and my wife felt bad for me because she knew I was going to have to talk to him. So she says, well, I don't know if he's here. Let me see if he's here. And Jim says, well, how big is your house? You don't know where he is. How big is that? How many floors you got in your house? You don't know where he is. It's midnight. So, but whenever I see him at a show, it could be a line of people, and he'll go, hey, Lou, come over here. I got to go talk to him. He's a very nice man. And Jim's secret is he'll treat everybody like they're special.
And he looks better than you and I both.
He's 80. I think he's going to be 80 years old. I think he sleeps 2 hours a night. It's like a bat.
He's amazing.
He is a wonderful man. And again, one of those guys who can, I told him one time, Jim, if you peed on a page, it would look good.
First of all, the shame about Steranko is that he doesn't have that much to even buy.
Well, he repeats this. He has this stuff out there.
No. I don't mean his original stuff. I mean his actual work in comics.
Oh yeah, but
he's got.
Look at me with the lousy. I think he did like 20 books maybe total.
I think he's got 32 in his whole career.
Like, but he just made that.
And that's even with the heavy metal series that he did when he did that.
But he made a career out of it.
Yeah,
he made a terrific career out of it.
Stuff is amazing. One of my collect. I mean, I don't collect a lot, but my Strange Tales and Nick Fury's Shield, I have that whole run.
Right.
But just incredible stuff. And again, I forget that graphic novel that he did in the late 70s.
Oh, Chandler, terrific.
Yeah, Chandler.
I still have it.
My God, it's just. I think I would cut off a couple of fingers just to have an original piece of his artwork.
I've seen it. It's pencils. It's all pencil only.
Really?
It's not inked. No, it's a
Oh,
pencil. It's only
wow.
pencil, and it's the way he did it, and it's a technique that he knows that he'll go to the grave with, I guess.
Wow, really?
I believe it's all. I saw the pencils on some of that stuff. It's there's the actual size, I believe.
Wow.
And he had 3 or 4 at the show I saw, and they're just beautiful. I mean, when I went to dinner with him, he had his portfolio, and he was showing me some of the shadow paintings and some other stuff that he did, and it's just fabulous. He taught himself how to paint. I mean,
Sure.
I can do everything. I just love his work, and I think he's just a great guy. And I haven't talked to him in a few years because I don't like to bother him. I mean, I used to call him, and he would call me, and we talked for a while, and we talk about everything from comic books to music to this and that. And I just don't. I like him so much. I don't want to bother him. I don't like to call. I wouldn't call him unless he called, because I don't want to waste his time. Because I know he works every night on something. But he's a terrific guy. He sent me one Christmas. He sent me a piece. I sent something in the mail. What the heck is this? He sent me a shadow drawing out of his sketchbook, a beautiful shadow piece that he done, and just as a gift. I think he's a terrific guy and one of the best draftsmen or storyteller. Talk about storyteller. If you look at his early Strange Tales, I used to tell him, I said, you see the progression where he gets better and better every issue.
Yeah.
And then his stuff is really wonky looking in the beginning, but the layouts are terrific. And then you see him just progressing. And then you see his stuff today, and it's just anything he does is just designy and beautiful. Yeah.
Well, he was following what? Jack Kirby and Dick Ayer, with
the first Strange Tales. Yes. Yeah. But he's smart. He said to himself, look, I have to differentiate myself from everybody else. And to do that, I have to design pages a certain way, which was unheard of at the time. I mean, I was buying that stuff off the rack when it first came out, and it would blow us away because it was so different. And then if you look at it today, you go, well, I see what he did here and what he did here. And it still holds up, I have the artist edition of that book, and boy, you look at those pages, and they're full size. They're bigger than 11 by 17. They've done the old novel size, and just fabulous stuff.
And again, one of my favorites. So
big influence as far as trying to lay out pages. I think I tried to. In fact, the House of Mystery story I did, somebody wrote in a letter column a couple of issues later, saying that he's got a Steranko influence, and I took that as a compliment.
Oh yeah, that's a big compliment. Because that's the thing; it's his use of storytelling.
Yeah.
Also, he had all that psychedelic stuff in there. Yeah. It's just crazy.
Yeah. I'm waiting for his second artist edition that we all are. I think we're all waiting because that's the one with the Captain America issues.
Yes, yes.
He's got it ready to go. I think he's only one title page away. It might be done, but
that's amazing. Yeah, it's just his work, the small body of work and the impact it had on Marvel and the history of comics.
Yeah. I put him in the top five.
Oh yeah. Oh, he's in my top 5 too. Yeah. Right behind Lou Manna.
Yeah. But number 455.
No. But I see, like, as I said, from working on sequential art, I must have retained some stuff you showed me, because when I look back at on your website, which, by the way, anybody watching is lewismanna.com, I noticed some techniques in paneling that I think I grabbed more from you and some of the Bronze Age stuff I was looking at than that early 90s image stuff. Right. Which is not bad to look at either, because if you want to draw excitement action pages, there's splash pages galore.
Yeah. But you see, that's where I couldn't get work in the 90s after a while, because everything was image looking.
Right.
And I remember talking to Ralph Macchio and a few other people at Marvel, and they'd say, like, you got to do this kind of style. And some of the artists did switch it over to, like Herb Trimpe, I think, had done some of that stuff. I just couldn't do it. I mean, it's like hand drawing is like a fingerprint. You just can't.
Can't and the thing is, you'll never be anybody that you're trying to emulate. You're just gonna. You're gonna. It's the same thing with being a musician.
Yeah.
You try and sound like somebody, but you wind up just making your own sound,
Right.
because you can't mimic art that well. Even if
No.
you're a dancer,
Right.
you know,
You can't change.
you have to. You're still going to come off as yourself.
Right.
Um,
I can't draw an arm any different than I draw it. I can't draw a leg any different than I draw it. It's just the way I've been doing it. So.
Well, that's the thing with me is like when I started doing my stuff, I tried very consciously to get a style of people I emulated, but then by issue number 2, I said, no, screw this. I'm just going to draw the way I draw.
Right.
And that's it. And if people like it, great. If not, I don't care, because again, I'm in a different thing. I'm not trying to work for a company. I'm just doing my own stuff. Yeah. And speaking of my own stuff, Lou surprised me by sending me a digital file of Misty America, which these are original loose pencils drafted onto 11 by 17. I'm working that up right now. I'm not going to have a finished product just yet because, to be honest with you, I told Lou before the broadcast, I said, I'm really, really, really nervous about inking other people's work because I only ink myself. And when I ink myself, I usually put my characteristics of my style in it. And I kind of want to retain some of Lou, most of Lou, and just add a little flourish.
Make it yours. Make it yours.
Yeah.
Just use mine, the piece I gave as a guide, and just do
all good.
What you want to do. Yeah.
All good. Yeah, but I was making it. It was looking like Todd McFarlane was drawing it when I inked it. So I had to step back a little bit. Yeah, it was there was webs and goo all over. I don't know what happened. Yeah. So I mean, let's again. I'm going to share your screen again real quick. I want to show everybody your website.
Yeah, they can reach me on ask404@aol.com because they can't get me on that website because I don't get to that site too often. I have to upgrade it. Anybody out there knows how to upgrade sites? I'm looking to hire somebody.
Okay, we'll hear that. Anybody want to work on some websites for a class?
Yeah, I have to update it. There's so much stuff over the past several years that's not on there, and I think.
Well, I know you have to update when it says MySpace on the top.
Okay.
I don't think anyone has a MySpace anymore.
Right.
But anyway,
nobody has AOL.com anymore.
That's true. Some people. My father-in-law's got it.
My business cards all have AOL.
Anyway, everybody on the stream, look at this Phantom. Just gorgeous stuff. I'm just showing off your artwork again.
That one on the first, the one on, if you go back, that one on the top is the Return of the Wrath. It was done for Platinum Studio, not that the other character. And it was like a 90. That one on top. No, it's the one on the very first one on that. Anyway, it was done for Platinum Studio, and again, another company. I did the Return of the Wrath, and the company folded. So,
man, the luck you have, Lou.
I'm the Forrest Gump of comics.
Don't stand next to you in a lightning storm.
No, that's okay. Everything else I'm all right with. It's just the comic book industry. But that's
that. Look at that shot. Wow. Going in through that cave with that. Wow. That's amazing.
See, again, I probably ruined it inking it, but the pencils, this was Salem St. James. This was my own character. I put this out. It's a funny thing. I had done it was a 7-issue series. I did it in black and white. I did the first 2. They told me send it to Diamond because it takes 3 or 4 months for them to okay anything.
Right.
To approve anything. Right. They called me up the very next day. I swear to God, they approved it. They said we need it on schedule every month. I rushed to get the last 5 issues done. Came out, didn't do so well. Did all right, but not so well. Years later, I get involved with a bunch of people that we were going to start a company. We had backers and everything else, and we're going to start a legitimate comic book company. So I said, well, let's revive Salem St. James. And I had it done, colored by Michael Coffey. It was inked by Jerry Fernandez, who used to ink Green Arrow for Jim Aparo. We sent this book to Diamond. They rejected it. I could not believe they rejected it. So here I am. I did a black and white years earlier that was never anywhere near as what I thought was this. They accepted this. They returned down. The people that were involved in the company got cold feet, which I don't blame them, and it fell apart. I met the guy. I stalked them at a comic convention from time, and I said, "Why did you turn this book down?" He said, "We don't know. I don't know why. Why you're asking me?" So something mixed up. I showed it to Steranko, and Jim said, "What are you doing with this book?" I said, "I don't know." He said, "You got to get it out there." I said, "Well, they turned it down." He goes, "This book, you got to get it out there." He said, "I'll do a cover for you." And I felt guilty. I didn't want him to do a cover for me because I loved him having it. I would have loved it if he did. And he wanted to do it. He volunteered to do it for me. But Jim deserves to get paid like everybody else. And I couldn't afford his rate. But if he had done the cover, I probably would have put it out. That book is still in limbo, looking to get out there someday again. I'll be in the box one day, and maybe we'll finally see print. But Steranko gave it the seal of approval, so I feel it's okay. There's black and white versions of it. There's color versions of it. It's been around since 2000. But maybe somebody will pick it up one day. Who knows?
So, first comic book that made you fall in love with comics, what was it?
It was a Superman, I think issue 162 or 3 or 4. Superman Goes to War. And he was on the cover. Some guy was shooting him with a bazooka. And in the back story was Ma and Pa Can't Die.
Who drew it?
Kurt Swan and George Klein. And that was it. That was the start. I went to there was a back end bookstore up the block who was selling comics for a nickel a piece, and I went up there with $1 and bought everything I could buy back issue wise, and then Batman, I think Ace the Super Bat Hound kind of sealed the deal, and then that was it. 8 years old, and I remember every week, every month, there was a candy store up the block who had comic books every week, and I got to be such a pain in the ass that eventually they gave me the clippers and said, "Go ahead, open the books up." Did you open them yet? No, not yet. Come back in an hour. Come back in an hour. Not yet. Finally, they got disgusted. They handed me the clipper, and I would count the books for them. Okay, you got 10 of these, 10 of these.
That's great.
And I guess it's just it's something that stayed with me all these years. I never really lost my enthusiasm for it. I was lucky that if you look at it, I've been a store owner. I've been an artist. I've been a writer. I've been an editor. I've been a publisher. I've been every end of this business. I don't think I've missed much of it, and I've enjoyed it all. I mean, I really have. I wish I could have. Probably if I didn't have to do the other stuff, work in corporate and things like that, I probably would have devoted more time. But
there's a lot of people on here that watch my videos and I know online that we're very cynical about comics right now because of what they're like.
Yeah.
Right. It's about nostalgia for us.
Right.
It's about picking up childhood comics, and picking up classics and things like that. I'm not a collector. I don't collect to sell anything or trade anything. I don't care what condition it's in.
Right.
I'm just here to but I remember and it's funny you say that because to be honest with you, Lou, I don't have any high profile stuff like you do for corporate comic world, but I have drawn over the course of my life, but I always had a day gig,
Right. So did I always did too. I always had, even when I was working at the Navy base as an illustrator, I had a lot of downtime.
Right.
So that's where I was drawing Young All-Stars and things like that, because I had this beautiful work area to work from, and it was like going to an office every day. But we had a lot of downtime, which really helped me. When you draw every single day, you get better at it automatically. It just happens. You get better at it. And that period is when I started even to today. I think I'm a much better illustrator today. I'm more focused on things. I see things more when I make mistakes than I was on the stuff that was published at DC or Marvel.
Right.
I had done a Rogue that was published at Marvel. That was weird. Jimmy James went with me to Marvel. I had my stuff with me. I wasn't showing it to anybody. Jimmy was dropping off. We had done a Moonstone, Mockingbird. That's her first appearance. Marvel team up. We did that together. Jimmy tells Mark Grunwald, "Could you look at Lou's work?" So Mark looks at it. He comes back out. He goes, "Come on inside." He gave me a Spider-Man script. I mean, these things don't happen overnight to
Right.
people. It's just lucky. It's just lucky. I did 5 pages. I brought it to Tom DeFalco. Tom told me to go ahead and do the rest. I did it. I was supposed to be the next Web of Spider-Man artist. Then the second script didn't come. It fell through. I didn't do anything for Marvel for a while. I think a rogue story for them. But these things, if you stick to it, something happens. Nowadays, it's better. You don't have to work for DC or Marvel. You could work like you do or like I want to do, independent stuff. My mistake is I don't have the technical savvy that other people have today. The Kickstarter stuff. I don't understand all that stuff.
Yeah.
But if I did, I probably would try to utilize it better. But you have the opportunity to do what you want to do, and you do it the way you want to do it, and you get it out there, and people see it, and they like it, and they comment on it. And do you want more than that? I mean, I don't even think people want to work mainstream that much anymore.
To be honest with you, Lou, I don't even want that.
Right.
If I could just draw and not have to market it 24 hours a day online, it would be much more rewarding. But that's, of course, the way of the world right now for an independent artist. And to be honest with you, it's not even just the independent artists. If you go online, on whether on Facebook or Instagram, you'll see every time a writer or an artist has something even cooking at Marvel and DC, they're having to promote it because Marvel and DC aren't. Image even isn't. All these corporate companies, let's call it what it is. The only reason DC and Marvel, or Disney and the Discovery Channel as it is, the only reason that they publish comic books is so that they can retain and keep the IPs on those characters for selling toys and bed sheets and lunchboxes.
They sell more tin paper plates and cups with Spider-Man on it than they do comic books.
That's there's way more Funkos being sold than comic books. Yeah. And the truth of the matter is like, the Avengers Endgame can make $1 billion or $3 billion, but the Avengers comic book doesn't sell shit.
No, they don't care. Years ago, they worried about sales because that's all they had. Now they could care less if they sell. That's why I say they don't care. Years ago, if an Alan Davis came along and you wanted to put him on a top flight book, you put him on Fantastic Four, you put him on Spider-Man, you put him on something, X-Men. Now they don't want to use him no more because they got to pay him top dollar. They could just as soon get Jim Johnson or anybody, and do it, half-assed. Nobody cares.
Well, there's a kid in Brazil with an iTablet, an iPad that will do it for $50 a page. So
exactly.
Just so his name appears in the latest copy of the Avengers.
You're right about the promotional part, and that's probably the main thing that I probably was never good at. I was never good at self-promoting. I didn't do a lot of shows. I didn't do a lot of conventions. I wasn't, when I was asked, I wouldn't do that many. Nowadays, they don't even ask. And I remember a couple of years ago, I wanted to do the New York Comic Con. So I wrote the application in, and I was drawing the Phantom at the time and a few other titles. I remember doing some other stuff. And they come back and they go, well, maybe not this year. We don't know if we have enough room for you, blah, 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 blah. But try again next year. And I said, listen, after 40 years in this business, if I got to worry about next year, go F yourselves. I told them, I don't care. And I didn't. And then they go over me the next year, hey, you want to do the show? And I said, no. But again, I was never really good at self-promoting. I just like to do the work. I like to draw. I like to tell the stories. And you have to be a self-promoter. There's so many guys in this business who, on the same level, I would say, but they promote themselves. They're at every show. They go all over the country. They have a clique and a little niche that they worked out for themselves. Everybody at every show knows them all.
Yeah. And, Lou, let's go back to positive thoughts real quick. You talked about, I asked you about your first comic, fell in love with comics. Mm-hmm. Who's your favorite character after all these years, or your favorite two characters? Or
well, when done right, Batman is still a good character. I really think that character has, but he's kind of gone off the beaten path the last few years. It's not, like I say, when you get an Earth One story, terrific. You get a few other things that are terrific. When you get the regular monthly titles, there's so many guys associated with Batman. He's got a crew of this and a crew of that and this one and that one. He loses its sole focus. It's supposed to be one-man guy or whatever against a normal guy. But when he's done right, Batman is a good character for me. I guess Spider-Man in the early days was an interesting character, and the Romita stuff and the Gil Kane stuff and those issues, Ross Andrews thing. It was like a soap opera. It was a continuing feature. It wasn't so much about Spider-Man. It was the list of characters that he had. But again, you don't have that anymore. I don't. There's no such thing with that on those titles. But I'd say the Superman, of course, was good. Those type of characters.
What do you think? What do you think about the classic characters that were have been translated, like the Mighty Crusaders and the Charlton characters?
Yeah,
and
I love. Blue Beetle. I liked the Charlton character when Ditko did it. I liked Captain Atom when Ditko did it. When they transferred over to DC, some of the stuff they did was nice. The Mighty Crusaders, I didn't care for the DC versions of them. I liked the traditional versions better.
Yeah.
And I had found the script recently. I had done that Web Jaguar book, and I was going through my files, and I have an old file cabinet, like the old-fashioned file cabinets, and in there, it seems like everything from the 70s is in there. And I found 2 rough plots for the next 2 issues of that Web Jaguar book. So I drew one of them up, just as just to do it. And I think I put a few pages up on Facebook, eBay, and I sold a few of them. But it was fun because I found this sketchbook with some sketches in it, and I said, "Oh, all right." And it kind of was nice to go and kind of complete what I should have been able to do back then that they just canceled out.
That Web Jaguar book, I love that. When I was working in your shop, I think that had just come out.
Yeah, probably.
Because like you pulled it off the wall and gave it to me. Like, it had just come out. So, that was like really a cool book.
Yeah.
For some reason, I don't have that. I have the Thunder Agents, but I don't have that anymore.
Swiped the hell out of Garcia Lopez in that one. And somebody recently, there was a few panels on Facebook, and they said, "I can see Garcia Lopez. Here's the shot," and they matched it side by side. I said, "Hey, when I was learning, believe me, if we're going to swipe, I'm taking from the best."
Exactly. But I remember that stuff. Now, do you remember me working in your shop?
Yeah, sure. I remember because I didn't have a lot of people working in there, and there were a few people that wanted to work there, and I couldn't afford. It was a one-man shop, basically. I couldn't really afford to pay too many people.
And I remember coming in and your parents being there, instead of you. Yeah. And man, you had me bagging and boarding a lot of shit.
Did I?
Yeah. Well, no, but that was what I was doing for in exchange for the lessons or whatever.
It was you. There was a friend, Arthur Leahy was a nice kid. He was in there. There was a Tom, this kid Tom. My cousin Anthony, I think, worked there a little bit. A few people in and out. But I wish I could have afforded to pay people. Like I didn't have that type of stuff. At that time, the comic books was selling for maybe 60 cents.
Yeah, they were 60 cents, I think.
But maybe I was paying 30 cents a comic, so I was making 30 cents a comic book. I sell a lot of comic books to make anything. But
I think Crisis on Infinite Earths was coming out while I was there. And then when Teen Titans, because I was a big Perez fan, Teen Titans went out on that Baxter format.
Yeah.
When Omega Men, Teen Titans, Infinity Inc., all those prestige, that higher quality paper format came out.
Yeah. I remember when the Dark Knight came out, I was leery to order any. I ordered 5 copies because I said, "Who's going to pay $2.95 for a comic book?" And had to go crazy.
Were you wrong?
Well, I had to go crazy getting them from a distributor out in California. Somebody because who the hell knew? When I put my first order in that first store in 1982. The guy that said, "How many copies of G.I. Joe do you want?" I said, "G.I. Joe? None. Who wants that book?" He goes, "No." I said, "No, I don't want any." And the very first customer, I never forget, I looked out the window. Some kid was coming across the street with his father. I said, "All right, fine. Look, I got a customer." He walked in. He goes, "You got any G.I. Joes?" I said, "Oh, shit. No." Yeah. But taught me a lesson. Don't buy what you want to buy. Just because you don't like it, don't mean somebody else does. So it taught me very, very early on that store. You got to buy everything that people, whether you like it, you read it or not, you got to have it. And that was a good lesson, I think.
Sure.
Yeah, I loved it. You know, I worked 7 days a week in that store, and I had my regular job. I used to work 5 o'clock in the morning at a nursing home. I would go at 1 o'clock in the afternoon to the store. I'd stay till 6. Then I go home and I draw or whatever I was working on, either DC or not DC, whatever I was working on, and then repeat the process for every day from 1982 to 1995. And I never felt like I worked a day. I just never felt I worked a day. And when I went to that store every weekend on Saturdays and Sundays, especially, I just never felt it was my place. It was the place. It was somewhere I liked to be, and I never felt I worked. Never. I mean, when I worked at the art lab teaching art, I felt I worked. That I felt like I was working.
Yeah,
it was different. But when I had the store and everything else, it felt like that was what I was supposed to do.
Now, do you still buy comics?
I was buying them from a friend of mine who had a store here on Staten Island. He just closed up about a year or so ago. But I get them mail order now once a month. I get a handful of titles, and mostly because I like certain artists and I want to see their stuff. But very few, no Marvel at all. And maybe, I was buying Ivan Reis, the Superman comic. He's not the title anymore, so I canceled that. And I'm down to maybe 10 titles a month, if that. So only decent artists that I like.
Yeah.
You know, anything Gary Frank does, anything Ivan does, anything that Jason does, people like that. Brian Hitch, I like his stuff a lot. Again, Brian, he's developed his own style, and again,
Sure.
super realistic stuff. That Ultimate book he did, I thought was terrific. He burned himself out, I think, on that book for a while because that was very labor intensive, I think.
Do you it's a different world from when I knew you in 1983 to now. Yeah. What do you think about the actual comics, the things that we love so much, taking over popular culture? Pretty much.
At first, I was like, "How dare these people invade my world?" I mean, this was the stuff that only we knew about. Like, it was a secret society we only knew about Spider-Man. How the hell do they know about Iron Man? Or how do they know about this? Everybody saw the Superman movie, but everybody knew Superman. But the Batman stuff, it was a bittersweet. And at first, I was a little bit like, I hope people don't get. But then I wait a minute. Maybe I wasn't wrong all these years. Maybe we weren't wrong. Maybe we were onto something before other people were.
No, we weren't.
We had to wait till the technology caught up.
Yeah,
you couldn't see a Spider-Man movie.
Yeah, unfortunately,
the technology caught up with it. But we had our own little world.
Yeah. Unfortunately, now that world is bigger, there's less quality and more quantity. Yeah,
they pushed us out now. We're kind of out to the side now, and inside. You did your part all the time, and I get away.
Yeah, it's like that indie band that has a garage band following, and then all of a sudden they get hired by a label, or they make a big record, and everybody loves them, and they're not really good anymore because their best time was when they were hungry and had integrity and all. And again, it's great.
What's going to happen, I wonder, is that when the movies like the DC and the Marvel stuff kind of burns itself out, which they will happen, because for every Batman movie that came out in '89 or the Christopher Nolan stuff, there's the Justice League movie that comes out and it's a bomb, or there's Wonder Woman. The first one was good, the second one was a bomb. So the cycle will eventually end up. What's going to happen to the comic book companies then? Are they going to be able to sustain their business? Because they're banking on these movies making them money.
Well, the movies, we're going to have a burnout soon. Like every bad movie, a good one, like I think James Gunn's Suicide Squad that comes out this week
is going
to be phenomenal, actually. Yeah. And then we'll have a couple bad ones and a couple good ones.
Right.
The pandemic did not help, but the truth of the matter is that I don't know, even though it wasn't anything like a comic book movie, I thought The Joker was refreshing because it was low budget.
Yeah.
It was a $50 million movie.
Yeah. And I like period pieces. I liked it was set in the 70s.
Exactly. But it was a comic IP that made DC or Warner Brothers $1 billion.
Yeah.
Yet it only cost $50 million. Yeah. In comparison to Black Widow, which cost over 200, 300 million.
Right.
and had a good first week, and then it went nowhere.
Well, there was no big budget for that special effects for the Joker. There was no special effects, so that's what saved them a ton of money too.
Right, but again,
special effects was in that movie.
But again, I've been saying this since Tim Burton's Batman. Is why can't we just have a Batman movie where Batman is in costume, but he's like Sherlock Holmes, and he's just the world's greatest detective? There should just be movies like that where maybe he's not hanging from a helicopter. Maybe he's at Arkham Asylum trying to solve a mystery.
Supposedly, this next one that's coming out with Patterson is supposed to be more detective driven than
I hope
else.
so.
Yeah.
But again, that's the whole point, that these characters, I have a feeling, aren't going anywhere. And the reason why the comics don't resemble the comics that you read when you were a kid or I read is that they don't have to, because the heroes in the movies don't look anything like the heroes on paper, other than their name. A lot of their origin stories are different. Right. But again, like we said, it's about movies and money and not so much about paper. Yeah. Hopefully comic books don't go anywhere. I think folks like myself that are doing stuff online and going to conventions and selling them ourselves, that's the way of the future right now.
Yeah, I think so too. I think independence is totally the way to go, and because you could write the next best great story, and you get the chance to put it out yourself. You don't have to have some guy telling you, "Hey, I don't like this character, change this or change that." You do it the way you want to do it.
I remember your store in the mid '80s, and even Jim Hanley's and a bunch of places on Staten Island. They had a lot of Fantagraphics books. Uh-huh. And I remember seeing all those black and white Love and Rockets.
Yeah,
and all that stuff. That was like as independent as you got. Right. And that stuff, you can't even touch that stuff on eBay right now.
Yeah, the Rocketeer. Look at the Rocketeer. Now that's a funny thing. I had my friend, we worked at the Navy base, and we both loved the Rocketeer. We loved Dave Stevens' work.
Sure.
This guy, Eddie Rodriguez, he works for Disney now. When you see a Mickey Mouse globe, he's designed it. Golf bag, he designed it. He's fabulous, and we really loved the Rocketeer. So we decided we were going to try to do a piece, and we did this Rocketeer piece, and I penciled it, and he finished it, and he looked just like Dave Stevens. So we go to a New York con, and we show it to Mike Kaluta, and Kaluta goes, "Who did that?" We said, "Well, we did. Come with me." And he takes us over to see Dave Stevens. And Dave says, "Where'd you get this?" He said, "Well, we did this." He said, "We were going to do the last issue with him." He had gotten, I think, he went back to California. We were in New York, but it would have been great to be in that one issue. We really missed an opportunity there. But again, great guy, passed away way too soon. Had that specific thirst. Anything he's done, I've collected all his works, and boy, really. Yeah.
Either you're having some internet problems or I am. Can you hear me?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm still here.
Yeah,
I can hear you.
Okay, let's go back just a second, because you were glitching in and out. So I want to make sure that the audience, when they watch this, they can hear you. So you went to a convention with a drawing. Dave Stevens talked to you. I then lost the connection. I didn't hear what you said after you saw the work.
He said, "Well, who did this?" We said, "We did." He said, "Well, I want you to work with me on this last issue," and we exchanged information. We were going to work, and we were so excited because we loved the Rocketeer. And then he went back to California, and then he was kind of slow. He procrastinated a bit, and then we lost track of him. So we never got a chance to work on that last issue with him. But I think Sandy Plunkett did, and Mike Kaluta and a few others helped him on that last issue. Again, I have his artist editions. I look at those all the time. every page is just perfect. And again, independent. He had done a Superman Rocketeer story. He was going to have. I've seen bits of it, a piece that he did, and saw the plot where the Rocketeer was going to be the 19. What was that Orson Welles thing, War of the Worlds, and the Rocketeer, they think he's a Martian, and Superman from the 30s interacts with him, and it would have been a great story. They rejected it. DC rejected it. They didn't want to do it. Just the fact that it was Dave Stevens, they should have did it.
Yeah, Dave Stevens' women are so gorgeous too, by the way.
Yeah, he's just fabulous.
Yeah.
Shame.
Anyway, I was told you were glitching, so I'm glad you retold that story.
Right. Okay.
One of the people in the chat, my buddy Simply Incredible Podcast, says you were glitching, so that's why I had you repeat that. That's okay. You were going in and out, your video and your audio. But hey, Lou, it's been great having you on here. Thank you so much for doing a sketch of Misty America for me.
You're welcome.
I'm going to work that. I'm going to work that kind of stuff into my stuff. Also, guys and gals, anybody watching, please, if you're really excited about this interview, you like what you heard, you don't know who Lou Manna is, even though it needs updating, go to lewismanna.com, learn all about him. I also found a really good article on the mightycrusaders.net. There's a guy named Shield G-Man Club. He did a nice interview with you that helped me get a little background on you, because let's face it, when I was 12 years old, I wasn't asking you any of this shit. I had no idea who Jim Steranko was other than that Hulk cover. And I had no idea who Dave Stevens was because the Rocketeer hadn't come out in the movies yet. Right. So, yes, you know what? That would have been incredible. Superman Rocketeer.
Yeah.
Wow.
There's a picture. I think one of the back issue magazines or somebody has the illustration that it's in one of his books. I think the illustration of the 30s kind of shoots the Superman. And there's a plot somewhere. I think you go online. I think you could read the story online, where he has the plot broke down about that. And I thought it would have been a great thing. I think Sandy Bucket, if he's available, would be the next in line to do it. He's got a.
I got the story right here. Ready? Superman saves Lois, but he's got to go solve a crime or catch some. He's got to go punch Hitler or something with the Rocketeer, and Superman got to go fly off to save the day, because there's some like Nazi party action in the pier on Brooklyn or something, or California. And then Lois is with Betty in the apartment. Oh. And then Lois and Betty are like, wow, we're so hot from that adventure. Let's go take a shower.
Yeah, I think that was page 2. Yeah.
And then Superman comes back with his X-ray vision.
Yeah.
And describes what it looks like to the Rocketeer.
The one power every teenage boy wants to have, X-ray vision.
Right. And then, and it's not even sequential artwork. It's just a bunch of splash pages by Dave, and yourself. X-ray vision, man, what two Jewish guys from Queens or the Bronx or whatever, changed the world. But predating Superman is the Phantom.
Yes.
Now, who was that guy? Lee Falk in 1936 created the Phantom. Lee Falk. Did I say? Yeah. Excuse me, cursing. Yeah, he did. So that predates Superman.
Lee Falk. Yeah.
Couldn't make a good movie out of that either.
And Cy Barry did a ton of he's yeah, it does.
You're glitching again. You there? All right.
Yeah. Back. Okay. Well, I think that's the computer telling me it's.
Anyway, if I'm going to say, hey, if you dig the Phantom as much as I do, and if you like the way Lou Manna draws the Phantom, go check out his website. Also, Lou, you got an eBay store where you got a lot of artwork for sale. And
and you can reach me at asta404@aol.com if you want to do any commissions or any of that stuff, or you want to.
And even though your website is out of date, that email link is there. So go to lewismanna.com and go to lewismanna.com, and you will get his. You'll see his work, you'll see his history, and you'll see some contacts so that maybe you can buy some work from Lou Manna. Okay. Yeah. And Lou Manna, some of his work will be appearing in one shape or form in my campaign for Misty America, which, by the way, is completely funded. I've raised almost $1,100, which more than helps me print the book, some trading cards, some posters, and buys me some new hats that I just had done to sell at a show. Lou, do you have any shows coming out or just online stuff? Do you have any shows?
Nope, I don't. I don't get asked too much to go to shows, so I haven't been asked to do anything. So if I do, I would like to do some, but not last few years. It's been kind of quiet. But
all right. Well, here's the deal, Lou. If you happen to be vacationing in Florida in the next year or so, let me know when, because I know guys that put shows on here.
Okay.
And and believe it or not, folks like yourself, I'm going to say seasoned veterans like yourself.
Aging veterans is better. Veterans.
Well, no, I said seasoned, not aging. Seasoned. You got spice.
All right. Croak.
Your internet is playing havoc with your stream, but anyway,
right, listen,
I mean, I'm doing a show next month. I'm set up I'm set up a couple tables down from Pat Broderick.
Oh, Pat, yeah, he's in Florida. He lives in Florida, I think.
Which is crazy because I remember reading Pat Broderick stuff in your store. So full circle.
He was the pre-New Talent Showcase, guys. Yeah, Pat's been around a long time.
Yeah. He had an indie book in the late '80s called Sunrunner too, which I have the first issue still in the collection. Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of the first independents. Also, I remember. Yeah. Pat's been a long time.
Yeah. All right, everybody watching, everybody on replay, Lou. Thank you so much, Lou. I'm going to
thank you, Anthony. It's great. Good luck with that book.
Hey, don't leave yet. I'm gonna end the broadcast and hang around with me for a minute, okay? So don't do anything. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been watching my interview with legendary artist, comic book artist, and according to him and folklore, he's also a series killer. The minute he jumps on a book, they cancel the series. But
goes down.
Great guy.
Cancel. Put me on it.
Great guy. And if it wasn't for this dude over here, I wouldn't be drawing probably. And man, does he owe me? Anyway, thanks a lot, Lou.